Welcome to the Graybeard Chronicles podcast. Your hosts, Brian Halstead and Kevin Harkins, are two gray-bearded patriots who love God, their family and friends, and their country. The Graybeards are here to inspire, inform, and educate you on a myriad of topics they are passionate about. Brian and Kevin have a strong desire to share this with you to help you live your best life. Sit back and enjoy this amazing podcast as the Graybeards pass along the wisdom of the ages.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Graybeard Chronicles. I'm Brian Halstead.
And I'm Kevin Harkins.
And Kevin, we're here to pass along some wisdom of the ages. What the heck does that mean?
We're not perfect, but we do have gray beards. And that means we've got some significant life experience, some life lessons, and some perspectives that are worthy of passing along.
Well, I think that sums it up nicely. Let's get to it. Kevin, what's going on, sir?
Good evening. How are you, Bryant?
I am well, thanks. How are you doing?
I'm doing amazing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
All right, that's a high standard.
That's a high standard.
Yeah, I like it.
I was kayaking this weekend.
Right?
I didn't get hurt. It's a good thing. Although, you know, I knew somebody maybe I could call if I did, but I didn't.
Right.
It was a blast.
On the Rappahannock?
On the roaring Rappahannock.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And
it was probably roaring pretty good because it's been high with all this rain. The water level's been up.
My wife told me that I looked like I was wearing my Tilly hat, you know, and I had the garb on,
Right.
and I looked like I belonged out there. I looked like a kayak guide or something. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I'm sure you did.
Yeah.
I saw pictures, so I know you. You actually did fit the part pretty well.
All right. See,
Yeah.
well, there you go.
Yeah.
As far as you know, I am a kayak guide.
Well, you know, you've never talked about that, so
Yeah.
I would not think that you were, but it's possible.
Yeah. Anyway, there were parts of that river that were pretty shallow, though.
Yeah.
You don't realize how shallow it is until I saw somebody walk halfway across the river up to their knees.
Mm.
And I'm like, there's got to be a channel here somewhere.
It's one of the dangerous things about that river is because it's like that, and then you'll find a hole.
Right.
And people that don't know how to swim are trying to cross it, and they find that hole, and it creates a problem for them.
Yeah. There you go.
Far too many drownings down there.
Yes.
Anyways, that's not a happy topic to talk about, so let's move on.
Let's move on.
Yeah.
Let's talk about why we're here.
All right. Why are we here?
We have important things to talk about, and we have an important guest today.
We do.
Yes, indeed. You should talk about him.
Mr. Jonathan Rosenfeld,
Yes.
a personal injury attorney all the way from Chicago, has joined us this evening to talk about lots of things that actually might or might not include the law. We can certainly delve into that a little bit, but interested to hear what you have to say about life in general, and love some of the things we've read about you. And welcome, Jonathan. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. Looking forward to talking with you guys.
Yeah, one of the things that captured my attention when I was reading about you, Jonathan, was and welcome, by the way. It really is an honor to meet you, and we don't take it for granted that you've made the choice to join us here, so we appreciate it. But you're involved in a lot more than just the law. You seem to have interest in a variety of areas that I think are probably very applicable to helping people know about and live a good life. And why is that? That's a little different than a lot of people, especially, you know, true professionals that are trying to sort of stay, laser focused in one area, and you kind of have a broad spectrum. How'd you end up there?
I think it's probably just because I'm a little ADD, and I like to do a lot of different things. I have a fair amount of energy, frankly, and in order for me to really be content and be satisfied, going to an office all day, sitting at a desk for 10 or 12 hours a day, and coming home and basically reading your kids a book and going to sleep, that's not really something that appeals to me. Not for one day, not for 100 days, not for years on end. And it's just something that it's just naturally came to me. So I like to be active. I like to be out and doing things. And ultimately, it sounds sort of wishy-washy and everything, but all these different interests that I have, whether it's, athletics or cooking or collecting. I'm not even going to get into my collecting issues, but they all sort of, make make
You
Yes,
might.
we will.
You might. Yeah. Shouldn't have said that.
They make me, honestly, they make me happy, and I think they sort of make me a better person, and hopefully a better business person, better attorney, better husband, father, etc. So, I think that anyone who's, really doesn't have interest is just frankly boring. And I think all these things sort of like play off each other. If you do anything, if your sole focus is anything and it's all you do, you're very one dimensional. And I think people sort of see through that. You don't have to be a genius. A lot of times people see through that, you know, really that layer. And once they sort of get out there and you're like, well, what about this? What about that? And you're like, I don't know. I don't know. It's really sort of a shallow look. And I think it's sort of a turn off to people. I don't know. I don't do it for any other reason that I enjoy it, but these are just things that I've just sort of come to see. I do know people who are really, focused on their work or super focused on their whatever that one particular sport they may do. And I don't know. I tend to find those people sort of boring and sort of stiff and sort of just generally not the type of person that I want to hang out with.
So
That's a cool perspective. I like that.
yeah, I imagine that a number of different people that you would talk to about this issue would come down on it differently. But there was something you said that caught my attention. We talked to a fair number of successful people on our podcast, and there's it's not completely consistent, but there's often this comment that you as well made, and that was lots of energy, a person that has high energy, and a person that and people kind of throw it out, ADD, and I've said it about myself many times actually.
Yeah.
Were you ever formally diagnosed as a child with ADD, or you just kind of use that as a way to describe your sort of jumping from one thing to the next?
I think I may have been actually.
Okay.
I remember not really being the best student in class, sort of having a difficult time paying attention. I remember my parents getting me tutors on the suggestion of teachers and things like that. And ultimately, none of that stuff really helped me, especially in a school setting. School setting, I think, is a really difficult setting and a really artificial setting for a lot of people, especially young men, boys. And it's really not indicative of the real world. But yeah, I mean, I was to a certain degree. I mean, I was never taking medication or anything like that, but it was always sort of like, well, you got to pay better attention or whatever. And the truth is that, when something's really interests me, I can really hyper focus on it, and I can really, dig into it. And that's sort of what I do, I guess, with my interests, including my work, because I do find it interesting. But if something's not interesting to me, I have a really difficult time even forcing myself to pay attention to it. So, I try to double down on my interests.
I'm laughing because I think you just described the two of us.
Yeah.
At least I know I'm like
Oh,
that.
yeah, no.
Yeah, especially the whole capturing my attention. If it doesn't capture my attention, I'm gone. I'm doing something else. And I'm sure, I don't think, just to expand on your question, I don't even know that was a formal thing back when I was in the age that I would have been, diagnosed with that.
Right.
I'm pretty sure I'm in that category there.
Yeah.
I also think I sometimes have, I would call it RADD, redneck attention deficiency disorder, because, you see shiny stuff and you're like,
Right.
oh yeah.
Right. Yeah, it was too early. Certainly when although I'm not that much older than you, I am older for sure, and more mature and more.
We try not to point that out though.
Right. Anyway, yeah, they didn't have it, but I probably would have been diagnosed, and who knows what I would have been on, because very much like Jonathan just described. I was all over the place.
Yeah.
And couldn't. I mean, I was constantly being sent notes home like Kevin talks too much. He doesn't pay attention. All that kind of stuff. That was normal in my, especially younger school years.
Right.
It beat it out of me as I got a little older. But yeah. So interesting. But it's an interesting theme to observe among successful people. Although I got to tell you, there are some people who say, do all of that sort of broad foundation laying, experimenting across a variety of different areas at a younger age, and then sort of zero in and focus on something that you really think you want to be good at later. I know people who believe that as well. And then once you master it and you become world class at it, and you become recognized for it, then you can branch back out again and do other things. So it's interesting.
Yeah, because the branching out later, it makes sense what you said, but at the same time, the branching out later, I think that's important because then it keeps people from getting burned out, because they have committed to this one thing, and it's one of the, like we've talked about, people in retirement, they're done, and then they're like, oh, what do we do?
Right.
Because they don't have any interest.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Jonathan, I wanted to ask you, and this is interesting for me because I used to talk about a statistic out there about attorneys, and I don't remember the actual percentage, but it was a high number of attorneys that had in this survey had said that if they knew back then when they were going to law school what they know now after having been actively practicing law for however many years, they would have chosen something different to do. The idea of you talking about happiness and so on, and why you believe people are unhappy. I'd love to hear more about that and how you've seen it in maybe with your peers and just with people in general.
Great question. That was awesome.
No, I don't know where you got the statistics, but I would agree with you 1,000%. A lot of the attorneys that I've come in contact with are some of the most unhappy people I've ever seen. Particularly, attorneys who work at big law firms. I feel like they have, they sort of get, pushed in or sucked in by, high salary, a lot of benefits, some prestige. And it's enticing, after you go to law school and work really hard for 3 years, and then you got to study for the bar and everything else. And, and then they sort of get, a little bit of a trap. They start, they're relying on that high salary, they're sort of, their lifestyle sort of catches up with them. They may have a family or something. And before you know it, they may have been working at a firm for 5-10 plus years, and they sort of are really dependent on that salary, that pattern, in order to really sustain their lifestyle. The type of law that I practice is personal injury law, which is, a lot of people don't understand the world of personal injury. The world of personal injury is really quite a bit different than your traditional attorney. If you go to an attorney for a divorce, or if you go to an attorney for a bankruptcy, those attorneys typically bill out on an hourly basis, maybe a really high hourly basis, but that's how they basically make money. In the world of personal injury, everything's done on a contingency fee. So when I get a case, my goal is to get that case, resolved for as much money as I can, as quickly as possible. There's no incentive for me to, sit and hold a case for, years on end, because ultimately it doesn't serve the client and it doesn't serve me. And, my relationship with the client is really almost like a marriage. We're really, joined together because our interests are completely aligned. But at the end of the day, that's, sort of how I operate. And from a business perspective, I want to get, I want to get as much business as I possibly can. There's really, the people who are involved in personal injury law, the attorneys who are out there doing personal injury law, they tend to be a lot more entrepreneurial. They tend to be sort of, hustlers, sort of eat what you kill mentality, because if you're not out there hustling, that's your next meal. That's your next payday. And for a lot of people, that's not really something they want to do when they see how much work is involved and how it's just a sort of a nonstop cycle to a certain degree. But there's also tremendous upside. You have essentially full autonomy. You can really make your own schedule. There's a lot more flexibility involved. So I guess getting back to the question, I think a lot of times people get sort of stuck and they get in almost in a trap where after a while they don't have the skills to go out and maybe and network, or maybe that was never something that the law firm sort of discouraged people from doing because they wanted to sort of keep them in that worker bee mentality. So I can go on and on. I've never worked at this is the only type of law that I've ever done, so I don't know any better. I just know this secondhand and through observation, talking with people who work at big firms, whether it's insurance defense firms or corporate law firms or something like that, where initially there may be quite a few benefits, but after a while, a lot of these firms also have minimum billing requirements where you're required to bill 2,000, 2,500 hours a year, which is an awful lot of time, especially if you're just sitting at a desk most of those hours. In my world, I am out, meeting with clients. I'm out meeting with other attorneys. I travel, on cases. I'm in court. And the truth is, I don't spend a whole lot of time sitting at a desk. When I do have, paperwork to do, I'll do some of it, but a lot of that I do delegate to other attorneys to work on that. And that's honestly, that's a little bit of a privilege to be able to be in that position to do that. But that's just something my skill set is frankly better off used to work with people. I'm not really, there's a lot of people who can probably write a brief as well or probably a lot better than I can. And I just recognize that's, you got to play to your strengths. And that's something that I've really tried to do for a while now.
I'm glad you said that, because if you didn't say it, I was going to, because that's exactly what you're doing. That's outstanding.
We had a guest just a few weeks ago who said that very thing.
Yeah.
The guy who does the filming of the sporting events.
Yeah. Howie Zales.
Howie. And he said, yeah, he spend all your time doing the 5% of the things that you're really good at and delegate the rest if you can, if you have the privilege, as you said, Jonathan, to do so.
Yeah, you got to double down on your strengths and whatever it is, I think it's really important to just recognize, objectively what you are good at or at least better at than the average guy, and really what you're not good at or you dislike, and just take that off your plate if you can.
So there's something about your personality that strikes me enough to make this comment. Everybody has in their brain sort of this stereotypical personal injury lawyer, and I'm sure everybody's is different. But one of the stereotypical behaviors that I have in my brain until 10 minutes ago when we started talking to you was that the personalities can be very aggressive, even very bristly, very tough, very difficult, very inflexible, and you don't strike me that way at all, actually, and maybe that's better.
I think that comes from some of those commercials that you see.
Oh yeah, Better Call Saul. Yeah, all that stuff. Right. And I imagine in the real world of personal injury and so on that it's all about establishing a relationship with the attorney on the other side and working it out and not going to court. I suspect. I don't know. Is that safe to say?
Ultimately, relationships are everything. You have to build relationships with your clients. You have to build a rapport with your clients. Because most of these cases, as quickly as I'd like to just get the cases in and out and just get those checks in and out, it's not how it happens. These are long-term projects, particularly more complex cases, more substantial injury type cases. No matter what, they're going to be around for probably anywhere from 12 to 24, 36 months.
Okay.
long time. And these,
Yeah.
a lot of times when, when someone comes and sees me, they're they're not happy. They're in a really low point in their life. Someone was injured, their loved one may have been severely injured or killed, or, they may be dealing with a serious illness, or, recovering from surgery. And these people are stressed, and they have a lot of, physical pain. A lot of them are struggling financially because of their injuries. And I've seen it. I've sort of, not that I'm so old and so experienced, but I've been doing this for over 20 years. And so I can try to sympathize and empathize with these people and try to really put them at ease and let them know, hey, this is my job, this is your job. Your job is to focus on getting better, taking care of your family. My job is to really deal with the whole aspect of your case. And I think right away when I tell people that, it really just puts them at ease to a certain degree. Now, I mean, ultimately, it does take time to build that trust and that rapport. But I think when they hear that and they know that I'm going to be there, and they, I give people my cell phone, I say, call me, text me, do whatever. I don't care. People are really appreciative of that. And they're ultimately, I think they're very respectful of that too. Typically I don't get people calling me at, 10, 11 o'clock at night, unless it's something really, really horrific. Most people are very respectful of the time. But go ahead.
What about, yeah, the attorneys on the other side that you're dealing with, especially of the insurance companies, for example? I got to imagine that's a big part of your, I can imagine a lot of those aren't really, they have their flow chart and their if-then diagrams, and if this, then that. And they just kind of come out with, this is our policy, this is what we do, this is what we cover, this is how we're going to handle it. And
You're right. You're right. And a lot of them, sort of, hey, this, I feel sort of bad for some of them. I'm not, because a lot of them are really, they're getting their marching orders from, an adjuster. And, they may be getting, orders from, the people above them. And ultimately, it's just getting communicated to them, and they're trying to do the best they can. But, at the end of the day, I think people, everyone's sort of alike to a certain degree, and I think when you treat people with a certain level of respect, and you're, somewhat pleasant to them or whatever, even if you're in an adversarial situation, I'll obviously, there's some inherent, conflict. I want the best for my client. They probably don't care about their insurance company, but they're at least getting, marching orders, and they're
care about their job. Yeah.
Yeah, they care about their jobs, and their backs are against the wall or whatever. And I think when you do show some empathy for people, I'm not saying that they're going to really go above and beyond, but I think a lot of times they're just going to give you a much more straight answer than, particularly if they're dealing with the other personal injury attorney, who may be a complete jerk and really difficult to deal with. That when, if you are civil with them, hopefully it goes a little sugar goes a long way. So, ultimately, you try to do that, but some people are difficult, and you got to roll your sleeves up, and you got to, fight back. But the truth is that, I'm always very pleasantly surprised when, when you do treat people decently, that it tends to come back, to your benefit.
Okay. All of this has been a really good commercial for you, by the way. And so for the good of our audience, if they do want to get in touch with you, where, what would you like them to see? Where would you like them to go?
Come to the website. Come to rosenfeldinjurylawyers.com. Take a look at what we've done. Take a look at our materials. There's pretty much a legal encyclopedia out there, on the website. Thousands of pages of content. Check out the YouTube channel, Rosenfeld Injury Lawyers. Check out the podcast, Personal Injury Podcast, on any of the platforms. But, the truth is that, I can try to be. I think people today are a lot more sophisticated than people a lot of times give others credit for. I think people today, they've seen all the commercials. They've seen the billboards. They've seen all this stuff, and by the time they're reaching out to call me, they're doing research. Maybe they see a billboard for a lawyer for, a truck accident, and that may trigger, something. Hey, I was in a truck accident, or my friend or family was in a truck accident. And then they start getting online and then they start doing research about their case or about their injury or whatever it is. And, then they may take a look at my videos or whatever it is. But ultimately, mentioned before, sort of the traditional, view of a personal injury attorney, being a, hard driving, guy. Um, you know, maybe some people are attracted to that, but I find that people in general want someone who's approachable and sort of they can relate to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I think you've got some thoughts. I'm going to take us away on a different path
Yeah,
for a second.
yeah.
But I think you got some thoughts on why current office setups are not right for most professionals. And I was intrigued by reading that, and I want to hear more about that. So please share.
Yeah, I mean, I think the days of, going to an office at, 8 o'clock and basically, walking in, saying hi to your secretary and sitting there for the next 10, 12 plus hours are really gone. To me sounds like living hell. And obviously I'm not, I'm not the only one out there who feels that, how that is. I think one of the things that we've learned over the past couple of years with COVID and with working from home or, doing hybrid type work and hybrid school and everything is that, when you do have, some flexibility in your schedule, you do have some autonomy, you do have some control over your schedule, it goes a long way towards your, your job satisfaction, your life, quality of life increases tremendously. And I'm not saying that the days of going to an office are dead, because I don't think that they are. And I think that a lot of times you have to be in an office setting in order to get certain things done. And I think that working with a group of people, collaborating with them, particularly, sitting down, whether it's for an hour or, just an afternoon, even just once every, week or even, month or whatever, it really does go a long way. It does make, help build relationships, help make things more cohesive. Just there's a lot of benefits to it. But that being said, I do think that being forced, I guess, for lack of a better word, to go to an office every day, I do think that really, I think it kills people. It kills their creativity. It kills their drive. I think it kills
Sucks the life right out of them.
It sucks the life out of you. I mean, to go to an office, to get into an office at 7 o'clock and leave your office, your house at, at, 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, sit in the car, take the train. By the time you get to the office at 8 o'clock, you're exhausted. I'm exhausted, but
Yep.
I think I think other people feel the same way. It just, and on top of that, it's just a tremendous time suck. To spend 2 hours a day commuting, on top of everything else in the world.
That's one direction. That's going in, right? It's crazy.
COVID has changed the world, and unintended consequences.
I was going to say that because there was lots of employers, lots of companies out there that were completely against remote work until it was forced down their throat, and then it was like a forced trial period, and they're like, oh well, this actually might not be so bad. So I mean, I know personally a lot of people that are still not going back in the office full time, and if they are, it's only one day a week or something scaled down. And certainly with gas prices, nobody's complaining about that either.
Yeah. No, and I do think that a lot of these things they're here to stay, and I think people are really, depending on the person, look, if you are a person who's sort of a self-starter, you're going to get the stuff done, whether you're sitting at home, whether you're out with your kids, carpooling, or wherever you are, whenever you are. And that's the kind of person that I want to work with. Anyone who I feel like they have to be in the office in order for me to, supervise them and oversee them and everything else, to get the work done, is probably not the type of person that I want working for me. So to a certain degree, I do think that it sort of separates the the people who are really, really competent at their job versus the people who may have been just sort of, going through the motions. And I do think that what we've learned over the past couple of years is that, you know, there's a lot of people out there who were sort of going through the motions. And those people probably, may need to find some other type of work. And the people who are getting this stuff done, it doesn't matter where they are. You can put them in Timbuktu and they're going to get the job done no matter what. And that's the kind of person that I try to work with and I gravitate towards.
Yeah. Yeah, there's another aspect to this whole thing, actually, it's not exactly related, but Brian and I were talking about it before we got on the air with you, Jonathan, and it was this idea about, the life, work, projects, personal development, family development, kid raising, you name it. It's a marathon. It's a journey. It's not, balls to the wall, burn yourself out. And if you do that, you're probably going to fade away. And we both have many examples of that in our own lives where that has happened. You've commented on that as well. And yes, in an instant, any one of us can be snuffed out and life is over, and it's over, and life is precious, and life can be short. Life is short, honestly, in the grand scheme of sort of eternity. But so many things that we do in our lives, and you gain this appreciation as you get older more and more every day, and that is that things take time, quality takes time, projects take time, real deep meaningful relationships take time, and these things aren't done in a hurry. And so you talked about that business is a marathon, not a sprint. You want to add some commentary to that a little bit?
Sure. Well, I guess, I spend a lot of time, I grew up swimming competitively and I swam in high school and college, and, I never won any Olympic medals or anything, but the truth is that, training and that sort of mindset, it really helps me, to this day. That's probably one of the most important things that I've done. And people look at me and I say that to them, and most of the time they look at me and they shake their head. They're like, "What are you talking about?" And it's a lot of times for someone who hasn't done, a competitive sport, for years and years and years, it's difficult to relate to it. But the truth is that, in swimming and in any sport, really, the commitment that it takes to be successful, whether, and success is all relative, but, especially if you're anyone who's done any sport in college, they've been doing that sport for a long time. They didn't just start playing basketball in college or start playing football in college. They did that. They've been doing that for years and years and years, and they've, sacrificed tremendously. They've spent time away from their friends. They've had to, rearrange their schedules. They've had to get up early. While their friends are going out to, party or whatever, they got to go home and go to sleep. And that being said, I think what I try to do is, that I draw upon those experiences quite a bit while I'm, doing my job, my work, and, trying to grow my business, because, I realize, I've sort of, not that I've been through everything, but, I've been through that. I've experienced, what it sort of takes to sort of improve. And I think one of the most frustrating things for a lot of people is that it's not a straight line. It's a lot of ups and downs, a lot of zigzags or whatever. But, I think that you got to just be consistent. You got to show up. A lot of people just don't show up. And, if you keep doing that, yeah, it ultimately, it's just sort of about, obviously you want to improve and be a better version of yourself all the time, but you also want to be better than the guy across the street. And if the guy across the street's not showing up, well, it's pretty easy to beat him in whatever type of work you're doing. So I try to be consistent, and that's a huge thing, and I just try to, keep grinding, because I know that there's going to be plateaus and there's going to be, areas of growth. And of course, there's going to be, unfortunately, every business got downs as well. But you just got to sort of be persistent and stick with it. And I just sort of draw upon that sort of that sports mentality.
Okay.
Very cool.
Yeah.
What was your event? What was your specialty in swimming?
I swam middle distance and butterfly. So my shoulders are now really paying the price for that.
Yeah.
But I still swim, just a lot slower than I used to. But it's
Yeah.
okay.
And where
It's
did you do this? Where in college did you compete?
I went to Lehigh in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania,
Yeah.
and yeah, I still swim, and like I said, I swim slower, but it's I swim with a group of people, and it's interesting because everyone is had different levels of success, swimming wise, but everyone is really sort of very grateful, I guess, that they did that, and I think they're very I think they realize that they're better people for it, which is, unusual. A lot of people have done a lot of different things, and I think sometimes people look back on it and say, "Oh gosh, I wish I wouldn't have done that, or I wish I would have done that instead." And most people who swam are very happy that they did it and happy that they stuck with it. A lot of people quit. It's a really difficult sport. Just the time involved. The plateaus, spending, years, 6 months, whatever, working on something and then swimming slower is one of the most demoralizing things around. But if nothing else, it does make you harden to a certain degree.
Bet. Yeah, remarkable things happen if you just keep going.
Yeah.
That's the key. Just keep going. Figure it out. Responding to the feedback that the world gives you that says, you may change course a little bit and you move over here and it might work out better for you.
So what have we not asked you that we should have asked you, and you've got this information just waiting there that you have to pass on to our listeners?
Well, I mean, I can talk about a lot. I can talk about pizza making, but I don't know if that's really that exciting for the listeners. But
Talk about balance.
I know at least one that
balance.
would be intrigued by pizza making for sure. But yeah, balance is a great one, right?
balance, yes. I don't know if there is such a thing as balance, to be honest with you. Everyone says, lead a balanced life, eat a balanced diet, and I do think that, I'm not saying that there is some level of, that I do agree with that on, but at some level, I do think that you have to, like we talked earlier about, sort of doubling down on your strengths. That's not necessarily balance. Spending, extra, getting the job done may not necessarily be balance, and ultimately, you got to sort of pick your battles and realize that things may not be balanced in your life. Things, you may have to reprioritize, and your family hopefully is supportive of that. But I think the whole concept of having, working, a set amount of time and then coming home and, being in a great mood and playing with your kids or your spouse or whatever it is, and then making dinner and then sort of going to sleep. I don't know if that doesn't exist in my world every day. And, I'm okay with it. I'm not, I just have sort of come to accept it. If I'm preoccupied with a project, there is no balance. I'm so focused on that project. I don't care what else is going on, frankly, and I'm probably not a very attentive parent or spouse during that time, and I'm not proud of that, but that's just how it is. And so getting back to the balance thing, I mean, I think that I do. You just have to recognize it and try to get things sort of realigned. After that period, after that project, whatever it is. But I just don't think that people can expect to have a balanced life every day. And if you do, you're going to set yourself up, I think, for disappointment.
I think that's a great perspective. I like that. And I've been one that have sat there and has sat there and talked about, work-life balance and so on. And when I was listening to you, I'm actually thinking about it because, yeah, there's contradictory information in what I have talked about in that category, right? So because you can't, I mean, what is balance? Balance, I guess the exact definition would be an equal amount here and here, or however many categories, to create that ideal balance. And I'm thinking about that, it's really not about balance. It's about the appropriate amount of allocated time and energy depending upon the category in your life, whatever that subject area is, whether it's family, it's work, it's spiritual, it's financial, it's giving and taking care of yourself, that recharging time to make sure that you can still function at your optimum level. All of those may take different degrees of time and energy for each individual person, which in and of itself doesn't create any balance per se. That make sense?
It does. It does, but there's a conundrum there because no, all of that I think the way you just described it actually kind of hits it on the nail on the head. But the thing I'm thinking about is, and Jonathan, you can completely relate to this. You're focused on a project, you're getting it done. Everything else is falling outside of sort of your chosen level of effort on this project that you're working on for a time, but yet at some point during the day, many people decide, I'm going to stop doing what I'm doing and I'm going to go exercise for 30 minutes. I'm going to do it. Doesn't matter what's going on. I don't care how important this project is. I'm going to go do that because that's a priority that's important to me. I mean, is that balance? What is that? What is that? Just choosing? Is that a different priority, or is that a priority that is? Because you can't do this and that at the same time.
I think that kind of goes back to what I was saying, allocating an appropriate amount of time to a necessary activity.
Right. There we go.
And that for me falls in the category of taking care of yourself, both physically and mentally, making that time to go to the gym because of the benefits that come out of that.
I think some people would call that balance.
Yeah. Well, if you're spending, I don't know, I could argue, but if you spend 8 hours working on a project and 30 minutes going to the gym, that's not balanced.
No, you're right.
However, it may be what you need.
Right.
It might be ideal for you, but it's not, I guess, in the definition of the term balance, there's not an equal slice there.
Right. All right.
I think you guys are sort of hitting it though, because I require a lot of Jonathan time, whether it's working out or whatever it is. I call me high maintenance. I've heard worse, but the truth is that when I do those things, I am able to focus on the job better. I am a little bit more, agreeable temperament wise. I tend to be, just a better person. And so I think to me, that's worth the investment, for the other, person, guy, gal, or whatever, they may be like, that's a waste of time, or like, that sounds like absolute misery. That's fine. Don't do it. I don't care. It's not going to offend, not going to bother me, so find what works for you.
Yeah.
I think that's the key, is find out what works for you and do more of that.
Yeah.
Because it's there's not a template that you can overlay to this person's life that's going to work for this one and this one and this one and this one, because we're all different. We're all unique creatures and we all need different things.
Yep.
The important thing is figuring out and understanding what those things are for you and making sure that you're operating accordingly.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to do it.
Yeah. Hey, this is completely off. I'll hold it till later.
No. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah,
Okay.
hold it for later, because I gotta circle back. I don't want to forget this.
All right.
Let's talk about some collecting. What kinds of things do you like to collect? You threw it out there. I can't let it go, because I like to collect stuff too. So I'm intrigued.
I don't know what if it just must be in my DNA or something. I collected tools when I was a kid, hand tools. And I remember I was probably 10 years old or something. I never had a router. My parents were not really, handy type people or anything, but I just really love tools, and so I basically wound up getting every single hand tool they made. Then I started getting electric tools. I don't know how to use any of them. I just loved playing with them. I loved the tactile feel or whatever. I thought they were cool or whatever. And then I did that for a while. And then after that, then I don't know, I guess a few years passed. Then at some point, I started getting into wine collecting. And it wasn't really, I wouldn't even call it collecting. It was really hoarding of wine.
I was gonna say, are you a hoarder? Yes.
It wasn't. I can't even say it was collecting because it got so out of control that I mean, I really needed at that point a whole intervention. But I mean, I would basically just get cases and cases and cases of wine.
Wow.
At one point, I would have I had an extra. This was when I had a different office, but I had an extra office in my office suite that I would have just to put wine in. I had wine coolers and everything else like that. And then, that phase lasted for a while. And then I sort of got into collecting knives, and I basically got every single knife, that I was really into hand knives, and then after the knives, then came the watches, and then, and the watches, when I say, but when I sort of get into any kind of collecting, it's almost an obsession. It's not a normal level. It's just a full-on obsession where there's no rational behavior involved. It's just I'm obsessed.
I feel your pain. I feel your pain.
I mean,
it's not really pain though, but I can certainly understand what you're saying.
And everyone's like, gosh, why do you need another watch? I'm like, I don't know. I can't explain. And by the way, you can tell what I'm wearing right now.
Right.
It's just one of those things where, I get super obsessed about it, and I love to learn about it. I love the hunt. I love to do the research and find out about whether it's watches, whether finding the different movements on it, the dates that they were made, and then it's finding the best price on it and finding the best provenance and getting the box and papers and everything else. And so I guess at some level it probably is learning, and it's a combination of learning, and it's a combination of obsession, and a combination of I guess I just love the hunt.
I'm gonna ruin you here. You ready? You ready to be ruined?
Yes.
You ready for your next hunt?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Pipes. Yeah. So this guy right here.
Yeah.
The time is going on, and when did you start? 18 months ago?
Yeah, something like that. It's probably close to 2 years.
Okay, 2 years ago. Let's call it 2 years ago. He was a cigar smoker and I don't know if he never smoked a pipe, but it certainly wasn't anything that was really any part of his life at all. And we both, I think I even suggested to him, there was a really fascinating, if you haven't watched it, documentary on Hugh Hefner that's out there. It's either on Netflix or Amazon, one of those, about his life, about Playboy and his actually incredible business acumen. But in that documentary, he's frequently smoking a pipe, that big long thing.
Yeah.
Takes you up to here, and he's smoking it. And that captured Brian's attention. Something about that particular sort of activity captured his attention. Next thing you know, because he has the same thing.
I'm going to try that.
So we have in this room, you can't see them. They're everywhere on the walls.
Everywhere is an awful broad term.
There's about 60 of them now. 60 pipes that
It's
are
a good
here.
start, I think.
Yeah, it's a good start.
Yeah.
One.
Never know when you're gonna break one or need some extra.
Right.
And he's smoked them all. So there you go. It's art, it's science, it's beauty, it's types of wood, it's types of mouthpiece, it's filtered or unfiltered. It's amazing, all the things you can.
What's there's I forget what they're called, but my wife's grandfather used to smoke pipes, and he had these. They were carved ivory. I forget what they were called.
It's probably I don't know if it was ivory, if it was meerschaum.
Yeah, Meerschaum. Yeah,
yeah.
that's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
Meerschaum comes from.
it looked like ivory though. They're white. And they
Yeah,
would get
exactly. I have
Yeah, but
one of those that was given to me as a gift.
they're beautiful. They're
Yeah.
beautiful. They were carved, and they got sort of, I don't know. I would call it a patina, but it's really just
Yeah, and
tobacco.
they all age differently based on how you smoke them and so on. But that's made out of it's like a sea foam or something that hardens. And I'm probably screwing this up. So any of the folks that know about this, feel free to comment. But
Coral? Was it a
no,
coral?
it comes
Sea
from
foam?
the Mediterranean, right? I believe.
Huh.
Turkey is a really prominent place that they're made.
Okay.
And they harvest this stuff, and it's carved out of these blocks of whatever that raw material
Meerschaum, is that what you called it?
yeah,
Okay.
into
All right.
these meerschaum pipes.
All right.
And they say they're phenomenal. Like I said, I've only smoked that one.
No,
there it is.
I got to go get about 30 or 40 more of them. And
Right. Well, there you go. Then you guys can, 2 years from now, talk about all your pipes.
Nice.
Until you're on to the next thing, Jonathan, whatever that is. Car tires or something.
God only knows.
It's interesting. It is.
That's right.
It says something about your personality. Yeah.
Very cool. I've enjoyed the
I
conversation.
have too. Yeah, this has been good.
Yeah, great information, and we certainly appreciate you taking time to be here and share your time with us, and the information that you shared with us and the folks that are listening and watching. So thank you for that.
Thank you guys. It was fun talking with you, and I appreciate the opportunity.
You bet. Absolutely.
All right,
Don't forget your button.
I'm gonna reach over here and hit this thing. No matter who you are, where you are, what you're doing, make sure between this podcast and the next, you take time to enjoy the ride.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Graybeard Chronicles. Please subscribe so you'll receive notification when new episodes are available. To learn more about the Graybeards, visit their website, graybeardchronicles.com.